In 2001, King's Dominion would open the world's first compressed air launched rollercoaster, taking riders from 0 to 80 miles per hour in just 1.8 seconds. The new prototype attraction was plagued with issues during its operation, and this troubled rollercoaster would be closed just 7 years later.
The new Hypersonic XLC, 0 to 80 in 1.8 seconds.
Prepare to launch.
S&S Power's newest coaster, the Thrust Air 2000, billed as the thrill ride of the new millennium.
It's very fast, and you feel like your skin is going to rip off your face.
Hypersonic XLC, only at Paramount's King's Dominion.
Free-fall drop towers began opening at major amusement parks in the early 1980s, with Six Flags being the first to introduce them into their parks. Created by Intamin, these large first-generation free-fall L-shaped attractions were a huge hit. By 1995, Intamin were ready to introduce their second generation with Hellevator at Kentucky Kingdom. The same year, located in Logan, Utah, S&S Sports Inc., the largest bungee jumping company in the world, would enter the amusement park ride industry with the introduction of the Space Shot, the first of which would open in 1995, located at Reno Aventura in Mexico City. This new take on the drop tower would take up the smallest space possible, offering a thrilling ride that no matter the size of the park, many would be able to find a place for. The steel tower would feature pipes inside connected to a storage tank. The largest central pipe would contain a piston connected to steel cables attached to the ride vehicle. A computer would calculate the weight of the ride vehicle with its riders on board and fill 4 cylinders with the correct air quantity to power the launch. When released into the central cylinder pipe, it pushed the piston down, creating the intense, smooth acceleration. The air is then gradually released from the cylinder, allowing the ride vehicle to return down smoothly.
PlayStation, the ride. Blackpool's second tower is 210 feet high. Oh, it's a long way up to that top. Now what happens is 12 riders are securely fastened in at the bottom, then they are catapulted at speeds up to 80 miles an hour to the top, then they're left to freefall down to earth again.
The first versions of this ride would use arrow-sourced restraints. They would, however, develop their own with larger versions the following year, including one on the top of the Stratosphere and at Action Park. For larger parks such as Worlds of Fun, they created multiple towers to increase capacity. The new attraction was incredibly popular for parks to install, with its relatively small cost to purchase and small footprint required to offer that exciting experience. Stan Checkett's company, now called S&S Power, would launch to the forefront of amusement park attraction rides. They would expand on their concept with a turbo drop, essentially the system operating in reverse, with air gradually lifting the vehicle slowly to the top before an injection of airtime in time with the brakes releasing would create a powerful launch downwards. The first turbo drop prototype was purchased and installed outside of a casino, Buffalo Bills in Primm, Nevada. Come on Lance, this isn't even a Vegas video, get out of here. Each installation of the S&S attraction would continue pushing higher and higher until in 1998 Cedar Point reached a 300-foot mark. Wow, the structure at least. It was a mix of turbo and space shots. On top of the 4 towers would be a 60-foot tall topper, constructed by structural steel fabrication firm Intermountain Lift. This steel company, since 1984, had had a close relationship with another Utah firm, Aerodynamics, and they would fabricate the tracks for many Aero attractions, including Desperado. Ugh, I tried.
I was stupid. I was really stupid.
Intermountain Lift would go on to work with S&S to create hundreds of their products. Within the first half-decade of S&S offering amusement park rides, they had installed over 85 of their drop towers all around the world. Inspiration was about to strike for a new offering.
If we build a ride that everybody wanted to ride, that's called an elevator, and that's not an amusement ride.
Stan Checketts would take the idea from his love of high-speed snowmobiling in the mountains up nearly vertical hills. He wondered if he could turn one of his launch towers on its side and launch a car along it using what they had learned from drop towers to create something brand new, a roller coaster. S&S Power would create a prototype model of the world's first compressed air launched coaster, dubbed Thrust Air 2000, at their plant in Logan, Utah in 1999. This new offering looked very much like a modified drop tower. It featured a 172-foot hill where the train entered and exited at a 90-degree angle, the steepest in the world at the time. It would then fly into a high-speed turnaround and return to the station. Using a catch car mounted to a steel cable that would be attached to a piston, just like the drop tower, with 4 compressors feeding air into the storage tank. Essentially the same system. The weight of the vehicle was again weighed to provide the correct launch speed, and it would be calculated using sensors. The tanks you saw inside the lift structure for the ride were designed to store air, but inspectors rejected them and conventional tanks backstage were used instead. This new roller coaster offering would launch to 80 miles per hour in just 1.8 seconds, using around 16,000 horsepower. Though, since the energy was stored after every launch, it only took around 400 horsepower to run it each time, with over 40,000 pounds of thrust, 40% more than one F-15 jet engine. While other launch systems had come before this, nothing could achieve that kind of acceleration speed. S&S would develop an I-beam style track and choose 14-inch rubber pneumatic aeroplane tyres for the trains to reduce noise, and to try and keep it as comfortable as possible. These tyres were prone to blowouts, but they would have a metal skid plate that would slow the car if this happened. All of this was combined to create a ride S&S said would be smoother, quieter, more cost-effective, and more energy efficient, as well as being more intense than any other coaster on the market.
A different experience than most of your coasters by far.
In late October 1999, invited guests to the S&S facility were able to find out just how intense this brand new prototype attraction would be. The answer was that it was insane. Acceleration never felt before on a roller coaster. The prototype would use modified over-the-shoulder space shot restraints while they worked on custom restraints coming in the future. After the sound of air whooshing, before you knew it, riders were already down the track at top speed, feeling 4 Gs on the way up. This was only the prototype to show what S&S could do. When making a full attraction, they expected it to be over 300 feet tall and launch at over 100 miles per hour.
Amazing as this prototype is, it's nothing compared to what S&S has in store for the full-scale model. They hope to double its height to 350 feet, add more hills, twists and turns, and break a coaster speed record.
One of the things I'm looking forward to is working with a park to pass the 100 mile an hour, easily pass the 100 mile an hour. Or whatever they do with it from there on, wherever they go, whether it's straight up or down, I really don't care as long as we can pass the 100 mile an hour mark.
It was the most energy efficient of the coaster launches, could reach incredible speeds, and was far cheaper to operate. Parks were clamoring around the world to get their hands on the latest and greatest in coaster innovation. The rumours of where the first Thrust Air 2000 would open was the talk of coaster fans all over the world. There was expected to be 2 in 2001, one later in the year in Japan, and the other looking likely to head to California. It would be Paramount Parks that would secure the $15 million deal to open the first version of the attraction. Teasers began to appear at Great America for what many believed would be the first Thrust Air 2000. Later that same year, those teasers were removed. While all clues pointed to Great America getting the first version, it would be the other coast of the US that would actually open the first Thrust Air. Plans for King's Dominion Future show that it was not originally planned to find a home in Virginia, but that a Flying Dutchman was once considered to be coming to the park. It is likely after the disappointment of Stealth in the year 2000, this could have been changed. It would be the Doswell Park that would announce the first ever air-launched coaster. This would not be a new coaster, however. They would open the exact same prototype version that had been built in Utah with some modifications.
The new Hypersonic XLC. 0 to 80 in 1.8 seconds and a 165-foot drop that'll leave your stomach in your throat. Hypersonic XLC, only at Paramount's King's Dominion.
King's Dominion has quite the history of launch coasters at the park, with the Schwarzkopf King Cobra opening in 1977, later known as Thunder Looper at Alton Towers, and the incredible lineup of Flight of Fear in 96, Volcano the Blast Coaster in 98, and now the world's first S&S air launch coaster in 2001. The prototype was disassembled at its original home and shipped with its new modifications to Doswell on 60 trucks. Then a team from S&S and King's Dominion assembled the ride over 3.5 months. On May 24, 2001, King's Dominion would launch, yeah, I used that joke twice, the now named Hypersonic XLC, the Extreme Launch Coaster, taking over the former Midway open space of the Wayne's World themed section. In attendance will be S&S's Stan Checketts, who welcomed the new attraction and also highlighted the fact they plan to build another soon in the US that would be over 300 feet tall. They never would. The park's 11th coaster would be 1,560 feet of track and now have a slightly shorter top hat of 165 foot tall. The track was modified to fit the new layout within the park's landscape, with a highly banked high-speed turnaround, a second bank turn, and a final airtime hill. The 4 trains, holding 8 people each, would now be also fully custom, with lap bars now replacing those space shot restraints. Hypersonic would be the fastest accelerating coaster in the world, the first to roll on steel I-beams, have the steepest ascent of a coaster, and be the first to use inflated rubber tires.
These wheels are pneumatic-filled aircraft tires, as opposed to the traditional wheels on a roller coaster, which are urethane.
Designed by a company in Utah, Hypersonic XLC is also innovative because it doesn't use a traditional chain lift.
The vertical section featured brakes to be used in case of a rollback to slow the train. Checketts had said that a rollback could be purposely achieved by undercalculating the launch, and it is something they had considered to be intentionally triggered to keep the coaster surprising for riders. This never happened, even if many enthusiasts would even pay extra to experience one. The new roller coaster was an instant hit, praised for its incredibly fast launch that had never been experienced at such a speed before, along with the incredible airtime flying over the top. While short, it didn't damper enthusiasm for those who got to ride it. The amount of people who would have that opportunity, however, was quite low, as the prototype ride would be full of issues.
With no other coaster in the world like it, it has crowds lining up at the gate.
We're finding that people generally fall into 2 different categories. There are those that cannot wait to ride Hypersonic, and those who wouldn't ride it in a million years.
The decision to purchase the prototype to save money would come back to haunt them. Kinda like a guy wearing someone else's face to find the location of a bomb, but then the terrorist wakes up from his coma and takes the FBI guy's face and haunts them. Exactly the same, really. Paramount were already dealing with issues that Son of Beast had been contending with, and now they would have 2 coasters causing them issues. 2 polar opposites causing trouble. 1 good, but acting bad, and 1 bad, but kind of acting good. The good news is that Face Off is finally getting a sequel. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We need more Travolta acting like Cage, and Cage acting like Travolta. Wait, I'm getting distracted with Face Off again. The Son of Beast expedition had enough of that. Hypersonic would regularly experience long periods of downtime, and to get on it, many had to spend all day waiting as it would test, open, and close over and over. The ride would remain closed for the first 3 months of the 2002 season while the trains were modified, and extra padding was added for those who did not keep their head back during the launch. The wheel assemblies were causing issues and had to be changed. The flat tyres that were expected were happening quite a lot more than was anticipated, and the forces on the modified track were underestimated. The park stated it takes a while to understand what a coaster can and cannot do. Whenever you're dealing with new technology, there is always going to be growing pains. Operations did improve, but downtime was still frequent during the following seasons, and nothing could help the fact that this was a used prototype now being operated for a busy major theme park. One that was created by a company who had never made a roller coaster before. Just 5 years after opening, with increasing maintenance costs, the attraction was put up for sale. Due to its unreliability, nobody wanted to buy a third-hand coaster, and it reopened during the 2007 season for the final time. At the end of the season, the attraction was removed from the park's website, and by the time the 2008 season began, Hypersonic XLC had been disassembled and placed in the storage yard next to the park. It would remain here in pieces for many years, and would eventually be scrapped, ending the troubled run of one of the world's most innovative attractions.
I'm Stan Checketts. I love life. I love doing fun things. This is a 22 long rifle. I love to go motorcycle, my sweetheart. I love to snowmobile. Love to invent things. I don't sleep at nights. 3, 4 o'clock, my mind's going a million miles an hour thinking of things I can invent. I've been privileged to design and build a lot of wonderful thrill rides, close to 200 towers and coasters all over the world. And to date, I think we're close to 1 billion people been thrilled on our rides.
S&S would continue to offer compressed air launch systems and introduced that second version in Japan in December 2001. While not perfect, it did not have the same issues that its American counterpart did. Dodonpa at Fuji-Q Highlands would take the record as the fastest roller coaster in the world with an incredible acceleration of 106 miles per hour in just 1.8 seconds. A launch that had to be experienced to even understand how fast that felt. S&S would also open what was essentially a drop tower that was laying on its side using the same system in 2003. This was exactly what they had envisioned years earlier when coming up with the idea for a coaster. Located in Old Town Kissimmee, Florida, the future site of Fun Spot, G-Force featured 2 drag racing cars that launched at the press of a button, reaching speeds over 100 miles per hour. Today, a few remnants remain of Hypersonic, over a decade after its closure. The prototype purchase to save money caused quite the headache for King's Dominion over the years it operated. Though I don't think you can call this attraction that was so innovative a complete failure. It would pave the way for more air launch coasters over the years, though it would take quite some time for the company to fully get the kinks worked out on them to operate as intended. Of course, there were some other mishaps along the way. Those stories, however, are for their own expedition.
Do you like what you do? No. You don't? What do you do? I work and go home, drink a beer and go to bed. And I thought, that is not going to be what I want to do. And I thought about all my curtain crawlers, rugrats, children I raised, and I'd just throw them in the air and catch them. And I thought, wow, if I could do that. So all the space shot was is just throw them instead of 3 feet, 285 feet in the air, and thrill them. And they're all over the world now, and that brings me great pride and joy to travel around the world and see all these rides that we designed. I'm not a thrill ride junkie because I get motion sickness. The thing that thrills me is when I see one that I created thrilling people. That's my thrill. That's my joy.
He lost it. He seriously lost it.
$100 for a picture of his face.
S&S has always been a company that pushed forward, innovating and offering something new from when they sold bungee jump equipment to today. To major theme parks around the world, gambling on a brand new attraction that has never been seen before is always a risk. Sometimes that risk pays off, sometimes it doesn't. And in the case of Hypersonic XLC, it didn't. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Expedition Extinct. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to join the expedition and follow us on Twitter and Instagram for updates on upcoming episodes. Take a look at the Expedition store to get your brand new Expedition King's Dominion t-shirt. A special thank you to our patrons for supporting the channel, and we will see you next time.